The great poets and philosophers talk a lot about the good, the true, and the beautiful. I've spent most of my life worrying about the good and the true. But now, I find myself wondering, what if I've overlooked the most important one? If beauty was the highest ideal, how would that change the way I live my life? This is Dan Ariely, and in 2010 he wrote an article with the title "You Are What You Measure," and it had a simple message. Human beings adjust behaviour based on the metrics they're held against. What you measure is what you'll get, period. In the short article, he gives us a handful of examples, from CEOs optimising for share price to the bizarre behaviour frequent flyer miles inspire, and our education system optimising for exam results. With the North Star of the metric set, everything else follows. Once you see it, it's everywhere. YouTube optimising for retention time gives you Mr. Beast. Optimising your globalised society for GDP gives you a climate crisis, in which you optimise for carbon in the air rather than biodiversity or ecology. What we measure matters, and that got me thinking. What metric am I measuring my life by? And what metric should I measure my life by? At this point, you have a choice. Sure, you could go with happiness, which is a fine option, even if it is a little bit bland. I think we've all got a few too many mental health problems these days to believe in the fairy tale of feeling good all day, every day. There's also the meaningful life, which in theory sounds great. Meaningful means that our misery has a reason, and as Nietzsche once said, he who has a why can handle almost any how. But then the meaningful life is so serious. Everything has to have a purpose and be heading somewhere. It's all so earnest and important, so meh. There's the good life, the simple life, the virtuous life, and if you're willing to go all the way back to Aristotle and the ancients, there's the eudaimonic life. But I'm falling under the spell of a different ideal. It's one that I hadn't really contemplated before. That ideal is beauty. Thank you. Too kind. So, I got a haircut. It happens. It wasn't supposed to happen this way, but it has. I shot this scene before getting the haircut, but now it looks like there's going to be some rework, and I just wasn't happy with the way these scenes went. And you know what? I'm happy to be able to reshoot this one, because it's just nice to be able to do a bit of reflection now that most of the video's done and it's coming together. And yeah, you know what? I was gonna quit YouTube after the last video. I gave it more thought than I've ever given it. After talking with friends, the decision I came to was I'm gonna make what I really, really want to make. And that has just been so amazing, and I am in love with this. I love that first scene. There's a couple more scenes coming up that I'm like, they're so good. It's also actually alright that it was this scene, because this scene is about a haircut, funnily enough. So this is me, younger me, obviously, sporting what my brothers affectionately called the mop. I wanted to talk about this kid's idea of beauty, because see, beauty was not always my ideal. And in fact, for this kid, it was kind of the opposite. I think when this hirsute young man thought of beauty, he thought of people who were taken in by the shallow things in life, people who didn't think about what really mattered. And I think that's so wrong now. So obviously he had a point. There is a whole dark side to beauty. Think of what Carl Jung said. He said, the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. So of course the gutter of human nature is going to stalk the transcendently beautiful, that which gives off so much light. So I guess the other thing is that I appreciate that there's much more to beauty than physical attractiveness, than a pretty face. And the rest of this video is really an exploration of that. So thanks for being here, thanks for watching, and for all the support over the years. Now let's talk about beauty that's not just attractiveness. Oh, and of course, be prepared for continuity errors. I don't know what the hair is going to be like in the next scene. Take this typewriter as an example. It's not practical at all. It weighs a ton, and if I wanted to, I could write a lot quicker by typing on a laptop or writing on pen and paper. And so, if my ideal in life was about truth or goodness or productivity, it's kind of hard to see where this would fit in. But there's just something about it. I love it. It calls to something in me. The feel of the keys on my fingers, the sound of the hammer hitting the paper, the ring of the bell when you reach the end of the line. It's all so satisfying. It tickles something in my soul, despite, ironically, its ugliness. I mean, there's all these scratches, and I could clean it up more. I could give it a fresh paint job. That's on me. But despite that ugliness, it's a perfect example of what I mean by beauty. I once read that Leonardo da Vinci had such a beautiful walk that people would stop to look at him stroll by. We're not talking about his face or his body or his paintings here, but his walk. And it stuck with me. What a pointless thing to make beautiful. There is zero utility in walking more elegantly. Maybe if you're an aspiring model, but for a 15th century painter, it was pointless. But beauty isn't about utility. After some reflection, I've come to this definition. The beautiful is something you love for its own sake, not for what it can bring you, not because it makes your life easier or because it's part of some bigger quest. It's something you love just for itself. That's why people love kids so much. Before she died a couple of years ago, my grandmother's house was the centre of the family. You'd go there and there'd be aunts and uncles and friends and cousins there. And I never saw her so happy as when a kid had been over. She'd be laughing so sweetly. My cousin's friend used to cut her hair on a Friday, and she'd bring her son Billy over. And if I hadn't been there, then the next time I'd call in, my grandmother would be saying, "Oh, Billy was here, and oh, he tried to put the key in the door, and oh, he tried to brush the floor," and she'd be so lit up over it. And this wasn't her grandchild, this wasn't her great-grandchild, this was her hairdresser's son, and he brought her so much joy. That's beauty to me. It's a woman in her 90s, reduced to being giddy like a little girl because of the antics of a kid. And my grandmother was no softie. Everyone from my mom's generation would be telling stories about her from when they were kids, and she was what Norm MacDonald would call a real battle axe. Talked to my aunt about this, and she was saying that when us grandkids were born, she saw a completely different side to her mother. She was a hard woman, but beauty melted her. And that's the thing about beauty. It's all around us. It's abundant. It's just there, sitting in the background, playing behind the busyness of everyday life. It's not something you can buy, steal, or borrow. It's something you sink into. It's something you relish, something you savor. It's the moments that give you chills. And it's not a thing of feeling good. Some of the most beautiful moments of my life have come in dark times or after a long struggle. It's this mixture of clarity and relief. That's the place where poetry comes from. The great Persian poet Rumi had this line that the wound is the place where the light enters you. That's not about pleasure, that's about beauty. And I believe that space is the closest thing to God I'll ever know. In the end, I think beauty is an attitude towards life. It's a way of being. And if the measure of your life determines the arc of that life, then I may not have a lot of money, I may never own my own house, I may never drive a car that's not an absolute banger, but as long as I have my friends and family around me, as long as I live in a beautiful place, in a beautiful country, and there's enough petrol in my car to come to places like this, then I think I'll consider myself lucky and consider this life, this beautiful life, to be the best of all possible lives.